Victini was created by the request of Junichi Masuda because he wanted a lucky Pokemon. This is more evident in the Pokemon trading card game, where many of Victini's cards rely on coin flips, and it's also Junichi Masuda's favorite Pokemon from the 5th generation. Snivy has the lowest base stat total of all grass-type starter Pokemon, with a base stat total of only 308. The highest is Rowlet with 320, and the second lowest is between Grookey, Sprigatito, and Trico, which all have a base stat total of 310. Servine was first seen on an animator's reference sheet for the Pokemon Black and White anime, along with Duat, the base form starters, Axew, and Woobat as the other Generation 5 Pokemon shown. Serperior has a royal appearance, and some of its Pokedex entries say how sunlight amplifies its body. This draws parallels to King Louis XIV of France, who referred to himself as the Sun King, and the dark green symbol on Serperior's chest resembles the Fleur-de-Lis, which is a French insignia and the nation's coat of arms. Tepig was designed by Li Hyun-jung, and was also the first of the Generation 5 starters to be designed before being fully revealed in June 2010. I also want to mention how Tepig's name in German is Floink, which is a play on the words flame and oink. Some of Ignite's Pokedex entries state how whatever it eats becomes fuel for the flames in its stomach. When it's angered, the intensity of the flames increases. In Emboar's Pokedex entries for Pokemon Black, it says how it can throw a fire punch by setting its fists on fire with its fiery chin. It cares deeply about its friends. That last part was a bit unexpected, but focusing on the first part, Emboar can't even learn Fire Punch in Black and White, and it couldn't learn it until Black and White 2. Oshawott evolves at level 17, then again at level 36. Because of this, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, they changed the other starters' evolutions to match Oshawott's levels. Duat and its whole evolutionary chain are the only water-type starter Pokemon not part of the Water 1 egg group and are instead in the Field egg group. In the code for Pokemon Legends Arceus, Hisui and Samurot's hidden ability is listed as Shell Armor instead of Sharpness. Shell Armor is actually Unova and Samurot's hidden ability though. Patrat has the lowest base stat total out of any Pokemon introduced in Generation 5, with a base stat total of only 255. Watchog is the only evolved Pokemon in Black and White to give only a single EV upon being knocked out in a single attack EV. Lillipups are said to be smarter than the average child, and will never forget any love it receives or any abuse it receives. Didn't quite expect that for Lillipup, so always be nice to Lillipups. For Hertier's Pokedex entries, some of them state how there is a theory that Hertier was the first Pokemon to ever partner with people. Stoutlins are very proud of their mustaches, and the length of their mustaches determine their social status among other Stoutlins. Purloin is the only Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 281. Liepard is known as the Cruel Pokemon, a category it shares with only Galarian Articuno. Pansage, as well as Simisage, are the only non-starter Pokemon to have access to the Overgrow ability. Simisage, along with its counterparts, represent the Three Wise Monkeys motif, and Simisage represents Speak No Evil, which can be seen by its hand gesture. Pansear, as well as Simisear, are the only non-starter Pokemon to get the Blaze ability. Simisear represents the motif Hear No Evil due to its large ears. Panpour and its evolution are the only non-starter Pokemon to get the Torrent ability, and Simipour represents See No Evil, which can be seen by its eyes being closed in its official artwork. Munna was often used in relation to the Dream World in Generation 5, although Munna was designed before the Dream World was ever even considered a thing. Musharna is known as the Drowsing Pokemon, which makes a lot of sense. However, the only other Pokemon to share this category with Musharna is Komala. I also want to share this early concept art for Musharna, which shows it being awake and standing on its hind legs. Pidove is the only Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 264. Tranquil's Pokedex entries say how it can find its nests from wherever in the world, similar to the homing pigeon that it's based off of. Unpheasant has some Pokedex entries stating how the female form can fly faster, but both versions have the same speed set of 93, although heading to Generation 6, it received a 10-point increase in attack to boost it to 115. Blitzle is clearly based off a zebra, however it also draws inspirations from the Greek god Helios' steeds that pulled his chariots. They are named Bronte and Sterope, which in Greek mean thunder and lightning. In the Pokemon Rebirth manga, a series where Pokemon can fuse with their trainers sort of like Ash Greninja, a character named Fraud uses Zebstrika. In the Unova region, there is a bowling show on TV that uses Raggenrola as bowling balls, and sometimes these Raggenrolas can explode. Boldore shares some similarities with Graveler. They are both rock types, have a base stat total of 390, have the Sturdy ability, evolve at level 25, then evolve for a final time via trade. Many of Gigalet's Pokedex entries say how it can absorb solar rays, and surprisingly it actually does get access to the move Solar Beam, unlike many other Pokemon that have Dex entries suggesting they can learn a certain move. Leading into Generation 7, some Pokemon receive stat buffs, however the only non-fully evolved Pokemon to receive a stat buff was Woobat, increasing its HP stat from 55 to 65. Hard Stamp isn't a very popular move, but it's the signature move of Swoobat. It has a 30% chance to flinch. Drillbur can learn Hydro Pump, well, by accident. During a raid event in Pokemon Shield in 2020, some Drillburs caught would have Hydro Pump by mistake. This was only active for a couple of hours before being fixed, and if you happen to have a Drillbur with Hydro Pump in Pokemon Shield, it can't be traded or used online until it forgets the move. In early trailers for Pokemon Black and White, Excadrill looks a bit differently than its final version. Its body is a slightly different color, and the markings on its stomach are flipped. Audino is the only Generation 5 Pokemon to receive a Mega Evolution, and it was accidentally revealed 2 days early by the official Korean Pokemon website before Junichi Masuda was able to reveal Mega Audino while the Pokemon World Championships were going on that year. Timber only carries squared logs, not rounded logs, which is backed up by a few of its Pokedex entries. Gurdur, along with its evolution, Conkeldurr, are the only Pokemon in Pokemon Conquest that have a max link of 100% with 5 different warriors in the game, which is the highest for any Pokemon in Conquest. A link in Conquest is the bond between a Pokemon and a warrior, with the higher the bond meaning the stronger the Pokemon becomes. Conkeldurr cannot be traded online in Pokemon Black and White without having a nickname due to a censor that flags part of its name as being inappropriate. In Pokedex 3D for the 3DS, when Pokemon are seen swimming, you can see this sort of bubble effect, except for Tympole. It just doesn't make any bubbles while swimming. Palpitoad, as well as Seismitoad, are known to be the vibration Pokemon, a category that they only share with Vibrava. Seismitoad is the only Pokemon that is not a Poison-type Pokemon that can have the Poison Touch ability. Throw was created from an unused design for a Pokemon that was cut for Diamond and Pearl, although images of this unused Pokemon aren't out there. Sawk only has one eyebrow. This is a reference to Masayama, a karate expert who shaved off one of his eyebrows while training in isolation to resist the urge to leave that isolation. According to Sewaddle's Pokedex entries, it can make clothes for itself, so it's a popular mascot for fashion designers. Swaddaloon ranked 6th in the Pokemon of the Year poll held in Japan in 2021. Even though it was that high overall, it only ranked 3rd for Unovan Pokemon behind Chinchino and Snivy. Levany is known as the nurturing Pokemon in English, or the child-raising Pokemon in Japanese. Some Pokedex entries say how Venipede has poisonous fangs, although Venipede cannot learn the move Poison Fang. Whirlipede has a base stat total of 360 because it's a wheel, and it spins around a lot. Scolope's Pokedex entry in Pokemon Shield says how they engage in fierce battles with Centiskorch, and at the end of the battle, the victor makes a meal for the loser. In Galar, Scolipede and Centiskorch can't even be found close to each other though. Cottonee has the lowest attack stat of all Grass-type Pokemon with 27 attack. Whimsicott's Pokepark pad entry in Pokepark 2 says she does things her own way, with a free mind and independent spirit. Petilil was originally planned to be part of a 3-stage evolutionary line, but was cut to just 2. Lilligant's French name is Fragile Lady, combining the words fragile and lady. Some of Basculin's Pokedex entries mention how they are remarkably tasty. Sandile and its evolutions are the only Pokemon that share the ground and dark typings. All of Krokorot's stats are exactly 10 points higher than Sandile's stats, except for speed, which is only 9 points higher. Krookodil's design could be a reference to Sobek, an ancient Egyptian deity that is half crocodile. Darumaka has the lowest special attack out of all fire-type Pokemon with only 15 special attack. Galarian Darmanitan was the first regional form to have an additional form with Galarian Zen Mode Darmanitan. When Maractus is sleeping, its eyes don't close. Dwebble and its evolution are part of the bug and mineral egg groups, making them the only Pokemon that are part of just those 2 egg groups. In the Unovan horoscope, Crustle represents July because the corresponding symbol is the crab. In 2011, there were 2 events giving out Ash's Scraggy in Pokemon Black and White, but they were only available in Japan and South Korea. Scrafty's Pokedex entry in Pokemon Black states how it can spit acidic liquids from its mouth, but it can't learn the move Acid. It can, however, learn Acid Spray as an egg move, but that wasn't until Generation 7. Sigilyph is the only Pokemon that gets the Wonder Skin ability without it being its hidden ability. Yamask and Galarian Yamask have their attack and special attack reversed. GTS filters used to not allow Kofagrigus to be traded on the GTS without being nicknamed, but that was changed later on. Turtoga and Caracosta are the only fossil Pokemon that have Rock as their secondary typing and not primary typing. Caracosta is based off the Archelon, which is the largest known species of sea turtles from the late Cretaceous period. Arkin is the smallest and lightest fossil Pokemon, at 1 foot 8 inches tall, weighing at just 20.9 pounds. Archeops Oshawott is the only Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 567, which also matches its number in the Pokedex. According to the Pokemon Black and White anime, Trubbish was created when a chemical reaction occurred between a trash bag and industrial waste. Garbodor is the only Pokemon from Generation 5 with a Gigantamax form. Prior to version 1.2 of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Hisuian Zora had the same base stats as Unovan Zora, even though Hisuian Zora wasn't available in Scarlet and Violet yet. This was changed once Hisuian Zora was finally added to the game. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Zoroark can't learn Encore via TM, but Zora can. The Poketoy item is based off Minccino's tail. It's an item used to escape wild Pokemon in battle, much like the Pokédoll, which is also based off Clefairy, and Minccino and Clefairy are seen to be parallels of one another. Cinccino can't learn Thief through a TM in Black and White as a result of an error, but its pre-evolution can. This was later fixed in Black 2 and White 2. Many of Gothita's Pokedex entries state how the ribbons on its body are the source for its psychic powers. Gothorita is categorized as the manipulative Pokemon alongside Grumpig. Gothitelle can predict the future based off of the placement of the stars. Solosis' shiny colors change slightly from Generation 7 to 8, with its outer bubble being a paler blue now. Duosion's Pokedex entry in Shield says how its brain has split into two, but the two halves rarely think alike. Its actions are utterly unpredictable. Reuniclus and its evolutionary chain are the only Pokemon who can learn Thunder via TM or a TR, but not Thunderbolt in every game they appear in. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Isle of Armor, Honey will refer to Clara or Avery, depending on what version you're playing, as a bit of an odd Ducklet, even though Ducklet isn't available in Sword and Shield. Swanna is the only Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 473. In a Japanese book called Pokemon 4 Coma, we can see a bald Vanillite with no ice cream. Reminds me a bit of Ice Cube, but Vanillites are very embarrassed if they're seen in this state. Vanillish and its evolutionary line were designed by James Turner, who was the first Westerner to ever officially design a Pokemon. He also designed Shadow Lugia for Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Vanillux can learn the move Explosion from breeding with a Garbodor. I know Pokemon has a lot of these weird breeding partners, but something about an ice cream cone and an old trash bag is just funny to me. Deerling has multiple forms depending on the season, however there has only ever been one card depicting an autumn form Deerling, which was only released in Japanese. Then in the Pokemon anime, the winter form is the only form that has never been shown. All of Sawsbuck's forms show its tail pointing down, except for its summer form where the tail is pointing upwards. Emolga is the only Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 428, and it can also breed with Wailord to learn Astonish, which I find quite astonishing. In 2011, there was an event Carablast players can receive through an in-person event at various retail stores. Upon receiving it, a message would appear encouraging players to trade their Carablast for a Shelmet for them to evolve. Pokedex entries for Escavalier say how it flies around at high speeds but only has a speed stat of 20. Fungus is tied with Paldean Wooper for the lowest speed set of all Poison-type Pokemon with only 15 speed. If you capture an Amoonguss in Pokemon Go, it will give you more Stardust than most other Pokemon. Furlish was originally planned to be just Mono Water type, but for balancing reasons, they added the Ghost type to it. Jellicent and its pre-evolution are the only Dual-type Pokemon that can learn Water Spout. In the English dub for the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime, they mispronounce Alomomola's name as Alola Mola. Joltik is the smallest Electric-type Pokemon at 4 inches tall. Galvantula's Pokepark pad entry in Pokepark 2 says he doesn't like to deal with Reuniclus because he was forced help with Reuniclus's experiments in the past. He is determined to protect and raise Joltik. I don't know what Reuniclus did to this Galvantula, but I don't think I want to know. Ferroseed has 24 special attack, which is the lowest out of all grass-type Pokemon. Ferrothorn and Ferroseed are the only steel-type Pokemon in the Grass Egg group. In the base Generation 5 games, no trainer has a Ferrothorn on their team. Clink was originally designed because Ken Sugimori wanted more inorganic Pokemon designs and came up with the idea for a gear Pokemon. Clang is the only non-legendary and non-mythical Pokemon from the 5th generation that hasn't appeared in the main Pokemon anime as of 2023. The gear seen on the left of Klinklang is the same gear that appears on all 3 stages of its chain, and it doesn't change. Tynamo is tied with Rotom for being the lightest Electric-type Pokemon at 0.7 pounds. Electric is the only part of its evolutionary chain that learns moves via level up. It's the only 2nd stage Pokemon in a 3-stage evolution that does this. Electros has some Pokedex entries stating how it can use its fangs to shock its prey with electricity, however it couldn't learn Thunderfang until Generation 9. Algem evolves at level 42, which is a reference to the book series The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the answer for the universe and everything is 42. Beheeyem can learn Steel Wing via TM starting in Generation 6, which can be a reference to Area 51 since it was TM51, but it could also have just been a programming oversight, with some TMs having their numbers changed leading into Generation 6. Litwick has the lowest attack out of all ghost types and fire types with 30 attack. Lampent represents October in the Unovan horoscope for Halloween. Chandelure doesn't appear in Pokemon Legends Arceus, but Ingo references Chandelure, a Pokemon he had in the Battle Subway, saying he knew a Pokemon that wielded flames with mastery. Axew has the lowest special attack for all Dragon-type Pokemon with 30 base special attack. Fracture's Pokedex entries in Pokemon Violet say Fracture uses its thick tusks to neatly cut prey into 2 portions, one to eat now and one to save for later. According to Junichi Masuda, Haxorus was the first Pokemon designed for Pokemon Black and White. Ken Sugimori further clarified this by saying how Haxorus was designed while Pokemon Platinum was still being developed. Cubchoo doesn't appear in Legend Arceus, however an NPC still references Cubchoo. Many people notice how Cubchoo has this thick snot icicle coming out of its nose, but you might not notice that Beartic's beard is also an icicle. Cryogonal is the only Pokemon that learns Solar Beam via level up, but can't learn Sunny Day at all. Shelmet and Carablast are the only Pokemon that currently evolve by being traded for one another. While the Celigore can only be obtained by trading a Shelmet for a Carablast and having that Shelmet evolve to a Celigore, if just one of either Shelmet or Carablast is holding the Everstone, then neither of them will evolve. Stunfist was designed because its designer, Mane Ibe, wanted to make the flattest Pokemon possible. Mienfoo was created due to a shortage of fighting-type Pokemon, and also because they wanted more fighting-type Pokemon that weren't humanoid, since most fighting-type Pokemon leading to Generation 5 were based off of humans. Mienfoo evolves into Mienshao at level 50, but in Pokemon X and Y, Lysander has a Mienshao on his team that's only level 49. Druddigon is the only Pokemon used by both the Unovan champions in Alder in the first games, then Iris in the sequels. Golets can be found holding a Light Clay with only a 5% chance, an item that boosts the turns for Light Screen and Reflect, but Golett can't learn Light Screen or Reflect. Golurk can learn Fly. This is a bit strange since it's a ground and ghost type Pokemon and doesn't have any wings, but it's because it's based off of giant robots seen in anime that can fly around. In Generation 5, Steel resisted Ghost, meaning that Pawniard and its evolution were the only Pokemon to ever have a 4x resistance to Ghost, although that's not the case anymore. In the official trainer's guide for Scarlet and Violet, it states how Bisharp needs to be holding a leader's crest and then defeat 3 wild Bisharps that are also holding the leader's crest in order to evolve into King Gambit, but you actually don't need to give the Bisharp you're trying to evolve the leader's crest at all. In Pokemon Go, Bouffalant can only be caught in New York. Rufflet is the only Pokemon that isn't evolved that can learn Skydrop. Hisuian Braviary's ability in the code for Legends Arceus is said to be Defiant instead of Tinted Lens, although Unovan Braviary's hidden ability is Defiance. Volabee's Pokedex entries say how it's too young and its wings are too underdeveloped to allow it to fly, but it can still learn Fly. Mandibuzz was designed late in the development for Pokemon Black and White. Even though Ken Sugimori thought there were already too many bird-inspired Pokemon, Mandibuzz still got approved and made it to the final game. Heatmor is an anteater and the natural predator of Durant, an ant, which is also shown off by their types, where Heatmor is fire type and Durant is bug and steel, which is 4x weak to fire. Ants are either very lazy or very hardworking, which is why Durant has the abilities Hustle and Truant to represent both. Dino is currently the only Pokemon that has its English name in alphabetical order. Zwelios evolves into its final form Hydreigon at level 64, which is the highest level to evolve into a final form Pokemon. Hydreigon is the only pseudo-legendary Pokemon that has just a single ability in Levitate. Larvesta and Volcarona were the last Generation 5 Pokemon added to Pokemon Go in May 2023. Volcarona originally only had 4 wings, but they changed it to 6 to make it seem more powerful. Cobalion is the only member of the Swords of Justice to have a type immunity in Poison and a 4x resistance in Rock. Terrakion has 7 total weaknesses in Fighting, Ground, Water, Psychic, Grass, Steel, and Fairy, which is the most amount of weaknesses a Pokemon can have. Virizian's defense and special defense stats are reverse of Cobalion's, while the rest of their stats are the same. Tornadus was the first Pokemon to ever be a mono flying type. Thundurus is known as the Bolt Strike Pokemon, but it can't learn the move Bolt Strike. Reshiram along with Pikachu and Zekrom were featured in the Macy's 2010 Thanksgiving Day Parade. Zekrom is the heaviest Pokemon introduced in the 5th generation, weighing in at 760.6 pounds. Landorus is part flying type, but can't learn any flying type moves via level up. White Kyurem is the tallest Pokemon introduced in Generation 5, standing at 11 feet 10 inches tall, a foot taller than Black Kyurem and 2 feet taller than regular Kyurem. Keldeo is the 4th member of the Swords of Justice, and it's the only one of the 4 that doesn't learn Quick Attack. Meloetta is coded to always have the star piece item if encountered in Pokemon Black and White, but Meloetta cannot be found in the wild in Pokemon Black and White. Genesec's Pokedex entries mention how it's an ancient Pokemon that Team Plasma altered, making it the only time an evil team is ever mentioned in a Pokemon's Pokedex entry.